Thank you very much. I will start before my presentation will be ready, just to save some time. I couldn't even expect better, I couldn't even dream better introduction to my presentation than the last discussion of Mr. Hovorka about availability of money and resources to follow up the trends and the changes that are present currently. So it seems that we all know many things, that we are aware of the speed of changes, that we know the technology, that we mostly know the answers, how to tackle the current environment and current trends, but we don't do anything, or at least we don't do much. We are not proactive, and we don't use any of these resources that are given to us, or that we discover them, or that we are aware about them. So I will try to respond to the question of last presentation, and I will use the opportunity, and thanks to Mr. Hovorka's presentation, I really think that there is something that we can learn about that, and I will try to keep the focus. It's hard after a very enthusiastic presentation that we just saw. So I will speak about the effectiveness of renewable energy incentives in Europe, and my target was to try to define the proper way to incentivize the heat pump presence in at least Serbian market, with having example from different countries around the world. So the idea is to tackle this by presenting you some of the facts that are going on in last decade. We have a quite visible increase of renewable energy investments, with quite nice progress of renewable energy, providing around 10% of global electricity generation. We have developing economies investing like hell in renewables, even much more than developed economies lately. And unfortunately, these trends are not really followed in Southeast Europe, but they are massively followed in China, in Japan, and mainly wind investments, wind-based energy investments in Europe. So this is giving us possibility to speak about the ways that these things are done, and touch the ground in question about subsidies that are currently made. Money is there, and we will see it. Huge amounts of money are there, but they are invested in the wrong manner, at least according to the official data that are present in the moment. Subsidies are made mostly in black energy. If we speak about the volumes, and Mr. Hovorka just mentioned 2008 crisis and investments that saved the banking system, after these investments we started to subsidize or to incentivize the fossil fuel energy business, and we do around $500 billion US each year to incentivize the business of fossil fuel energy production. This is something that is really giving us a headache, and if you see who is involved there, we speak about serious organizations like OECD, like International Energy Agency, like International Monetary Fund, and Overseas Development Institutes and Oil Change International Organizations. So these are the guys that are giving money to fossil fuel production. And this, we don't speak there about low amounts of money, we speak there about huge funds that are invested in as I call it, black energy. If we see the influence of these investments, we will just speak about CO2 emissions, because we all speak about this topic in last days, and we will speak about air pollution, and we will see about these consequential damages related to this kind of investments. We can see that the potential of reducing CO2 of 24% would be visible if such money would not be invested in fossil fuel energy, not to be invested in renewables, just not being invested in black energy. According to KPMG research, we would be able to reduce air pollution deaths by 55% by not having this money invested in fossil fuel energy. Then it's obvious we need to change. We need to do something to have things which were presented just before by Mr. Hovorka touched in proper manner to try to tackle these problems and possibly reduce this negative influence of the energy production base that we have in the moment. Overall energy demand expectation is to rise by over 30%. Renewables should grow to account of 56% of total power capacity. Penetration of renewables will double to 46% of electricity output, and cost of wind and solar should be lower in future. This would mean that we can do it in, let's say, more greener way and more smarter way with the knowledge that we have in the moment. We don't speak about some special know-how that we need to research in future. We speak about things that we definitely know and that we definitely would be able to introduce in our standard trends of energy development measures. I will just tackle briefly the policies that are currently present. These are official data. Countries with policy targets are existing, but when we go down in feed-in policies, in quota policies, in competitive bidding with the heat obligation mandate, we see that lower and lower number of countries are using anything from that to promote renewables. And then we can see graph what kind of investments are present in global level with the investments of developed countries and developing countries. We are not even touching the figure of incentives that are given to black energy manufacturing. Very similar information is coming by different technologies used for renewable energy and promotion policies. If you see, this is also official data which was summarized by KPMG, that high-income countries generally have met most of regulatory policies and fiscal incentives defined, and most of them are using. But when you see Serbia, and it is stated here like upper middle income country, thank you very much for that. I think that this is interesting information for Serbian people. We only have two areas where we do something. That means close to nothing. And this is the case with most of the countries. Unfortunately, from developing countries, we have good examples of China that is really boosting these investments. But other countries, especially in Central East Europe and Southeast Europe, this is close to nothing, and that really needs to be changed if we would like to do something in future to change this kind of thing. I will just touch the base again about these possible scenarios to reduce CO2 by year 2060, and if we go in that direction, we will see that this is possible, but massive increase of renewable energy sources used for energy production. And since my topic today is heat pump, I will just say that if this needs to be done, and if 2016 needs to stay with 1.75 degrees increase of the temperature, we need to go in direction of renewable energy. And again, I speak about heat pumps. And I will speak about the current policy implementation and possible two scenarios that are presented by European Commission and officially announced by European Heat Pump Association. This is related to the fact that most of the countries will not come to the targets of 20% or even more percent of renewable energy that is needed to be reached in year 2020. So we speak about possibilities to have scenario heat pump plus, which is a scenario of increasing shares of heat pumps and new buildings and retrofits. Target is to have 50% share for new buildings in 2030 and 30% retrofits, because even this is not going to bring the result in proper manner as it was planned. So heat pump plus is even announced by the European Heat Pump Association, which would mean that possibly 100% new buildings and 50% of retrofits would need to be tackled by some renewable energy, focusing heat pumps, and with the possibility to involve biomass in countries which are not able to provide such large percentage of heat pump solutions for such scenarios. This is something that could be brought by incentives and policy definitions which are present in different segments of or different countries. We speak about general assumptions, renewable energy sources directives, energy performance of buildings directive, EPBD, which is speaking about nearly zero energy buildings that are something that could bring some development in these segments. Eco-design development, energy labeling directive, energy efficiency directive, EU energy roadmap by 2050. All these definitions are giving positive impact or no significant impact. So everything what is currently defined is possibly bringing us in position to have some increase of the heat pump presence in countries. I also made research what specific countries are doing. I will not go through all these actions that they set as their targets. I will of course have this presentation public so you can also see what are the specific activities or policies in different countries. But I wanted to say that most of these activities, you can see what kind of line of activities is taken there, is bringing moderate results. Most of these countries, apart from really driving countries, I will just mention Sweden or Switzerland, will be in tough position to reach the targets of at least 20% of renewable energy in 2020. What does it mean? This means that if we look at this from the business perspective, like Mr. Hovorka said, that potential is huge. That that many things can be done for sure. But if we speak from social view, we need to say that we are slow. We need to admit to ourselves that we are slower from the nature changes that are present in the moment, and that we are slower than technology that we already discovered. So both things are ringing the bell, and at least I ask myself, are we happy and are we feeling safe about our future? Mr. Djukanovic yesterday presented the ARUP research about climate changes and influence on investments of companies that are treated by ARUP, and he mentioned that this environmental and climate changes that are present in the moment are not something that the Earth didn't see in past. The only question is the speed of these changes that are happening in the moment, and that was also confirmed by Mr. Hovorka today. If the speed is worrying to us, then we absolutely need to be proactive and to admit to ourselves we are in trouble and we need to act. All these presentations are very nice and we know the things, we know the technology, but the question is how much we use these technologies. If you see this table, you will see that heat pump presence in leading European countries is fraction. We speak about 1–2% of total distribution of heating system per country, with few examples like Sweden reaching more or less 15 or up to 20%. Everything else is 0, 1, 2%. Very nice conference. We are all here for a few days listening to presentation, but our result is close to 0. And we are nearly 0 now in capacity of buildings. We are nearly 0 to a success rate for what we are doing. I'm sorry, I speak in my own name. I don't want to insult anybody. So when we go further, we will see all the opportunities, all the factors that are influencing utilization of these very nice solutions. And this is all very nice, but in the end, it's not very present. Energy resources vary widely in terms of capital intensity, reliance on centralized networks, environmental impacts, Long-term energy strategies need to replace old power plants. This is, at least in case of Serbia, absolutely close to very enthusiastic and very optimistic, because we didn't even start to touch this area. Of course, people are doing something. We heard about cogeneration, big plants. We have also opportunities in district heating that is very nice for Serbia, but still result is far away from the at least projected and defined things that we would like to see. Opportunities. Fossil fuel subsidies are around 425 billion US dollars. We can definitely use them in some smarter way, and I hope that at least this kind of presentations that we heard today, that they will ring the bell to try to use them in more efficient and effective way, because what we saw and what I concluded in my research, this money is wasted. Energy efficiency and sustainable development. Of course, removal of subsidies can lead to carbon emission reductions. According to the predictions, we speak about 6 to 8% by 2050, which is not coming closer to sort out the problems mentioned by Mr. Hovorka, but at least we can start doing something. Reduction that can be improved further with the switch or swap towards sustainable energy. And we are coming to the ground what benefits from energy subsidy reform we could expect. In relation to environmental policy goals, we can reduce use of resource-intensive inputs activities such as extraction, production, distribution, transformation in use, thus saving resources, water or energy, and causing less pollutions. Sounds pretty motivating to me. In relation to economic goals, increase competitiveness by exposing subsidies sector to competition, support future competitiveness through improved resource efficiency, fixed market distortions by making resource prices reflect resource value and making polluters pay for their pollution. At the moment, they are incentivized, and at least what we can do to stop that, but next step can really be to make them paying for the polluting the planet. Overcome technological lock-in, whereby more environmentally friendly technologies practices are unable to compete on an equal basis with subsidized sector. This is for sure clear. In relation to fiscal goals, improve the cost effectiveness on meeting objectives, including social objectives, and release public funding. Also very clear, also very possible the funds are there. Enabling governments to reallocate budget to other areas by education, energy saving, and debt reductions. The barriers are here. Probably we can speak about them in days. I will not go in details. I think that what we can do is to try to motivate some decision makers by presenting some clear data and clear information, and we should be able to tackle the barriers. Business model Serbia. We have huge opportunity. District heating in Serbia is very nicely developed, and we could use this base to easily or fastly develop our own situation. This is official data by Beoelektrane in Serbia. We have 27% of district heating available in Serbia, and 1/3 of the problem is easily tackled by nice strategic projects that were also mentioned before. Comparison with district heating Serbia and Germany, we see what is the difference of energy sources. Again, I see it as a potential, and we could definitely try to value on that by treating it as opportunity. Challenges, of course, there. We can always speak about challenges. Serbian targets are by 2020, 20% less greenhouse gas, 20% less energy consumption, and 20% more renewable energy in the mix. We are today 2018. I don't know if this is realistic, but at least we can admit that we didn't start doing this in proper manner and try to do it in some different way to prove ourselves that we have the wish and that we have the drive to go in that direction. Serbian power sector is dominated by coal. These are some official data by Energy Community, Eurostat, and NREAP. And according to the last information, we are close to the possibility not to achieve 2020 target, and this should be ringing some bells. The price of fuels in Serbia, researched by GIZ, are also present. We can definitely easily see if we say that seasonal COP of air-to-water heat pump is close to 4 with the latest technologies. We can definitely see that heat pumps are very possible solution because they are around the price of the energy which we have for wood or straw or low-cost energy sources which are used in Serbia currently. So from that perspective, I really think that the promotion of heat pumps is further on the road good idea. And also heat pumps in district heating, we have all the possibilities, we have the resources. We could try to learn from case studies in Norway, in Sweden, in Scandinavian countries that are using even colder water sources and having district heatings, district cooling. I'm sure that Mr. Hovopka knows the central cooling in Paris, which is done by ammonia heat pumps, which is a solution that was really flagship project for many countries to see. I don't see that we are using these kind of opportunities in Serbia. Of course, driving forces, district heating, very good potential for our country. Barriers, we mentioned them, of course. Electricity price in Serbia is very low. It's even incentivized by lots of different tools. Feed-in tariffs are also there. We need to do something to change this, to be able to introduce some of the renewables in some more proper manner. Last but not least, I will go through some possibilities how to do that and how to be able to measure the activities that we could do. Energy subsidy reform is critical to achieving the sustainable development goals and tackling climate change. The goal is to set scale of subsidies and their impact. We saw before that lots of subsidies are already done in Europe. They are not so successful because the incentives in black energy are much higher, and from that perspective it's not so easy to break the ground and to have a proper development of the things. Donor community has so far devoted remarkably few resources to supporting developing countries to remove existing energy subsidies. There should be a way that the developing countries, where Serbia is definitely located, be able to motivate these kind of donors to come also in our countries. But for that we need projects. We need to define flagship projects that we can show that we are able to do that. Small projects, small kind of things are never interesting to these kind of people, and they will not come to the country for small peanut projects. Energy subsidies exceed all bilateral aid in 59% of recipient countries. So, having conclusion for that, a little bit more strategy into that. The reason for low level of effort is political sensitivity of such reforms. It is clear, thinking and working politically, providing recommendations. This means my proposal would be that from this kind of sessions we could do some conclusions and a list of activities to promote them to different ministries and to promote our opinion as something that is possible to be done on a little bit macro level, more than micro level that we are covering in this kind of sessions. Donors more effectively encourage politically sensitive energy subsidy reforms. This is more than clear. And government interventions encompass a wide range of regulatory, fiscal, tax, identifications, legal actions. That would mean that our engineering knowledge here is not enough to ring bells in the doors which are needed. So from that perspective, another proposal from my side would be that we really have, at least on third-party level, advisors to be able to tackle these fiscal, tax and legal actions to promote them to the decision makers. So from me, that would be all for this presentation. I hope that I at least tried to answer some questions from previous sessions. And if any questions are still there, I would be more than happy to answer.